Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome back to the free-to-play review. So today's topic is actually a lot of topics because there's a lot of new things going on in the game, so we're going to try and tackle them one by one. First off, hopefully you guys were also able to complete the Newt fusion because he's definitely an extremely powerful legendary that you will definitely want on your account. Albeit 5-star at the moment, if you guys were curious how I built mine, I don't really have enough gear left over to build him in Relentless or Reflex, although those would definitely be ideal, so I just went with some generic speed and perception gear. So bear in mind, he's level 50, or not even level 50, level 30 something. So the total stats are going to be less than you'd expect, so I kind of ignore the HP and the defense. But if we focus on the more important stats, we have about 227 on the speed currently. When he's 6-star with the banner, he should be somewhere around 250 plus. Full crit rate, crit damage is waiting on the amulet as well, so there's going to be around 200 and something, maybe low 200s. And then the accuracy is 207 right now, but once I add the banner and the amulet, it's going to be somewhere around 350. And as far as supplies for the fusion go, if you follow the shard pull videos, you can kind of see my shard count throughout the entire process. But focusing more on the gem count, you can see that I'm down to about 4,700 and we started at 4,900. So overall, I've netted a net lost around 200 gems, which is not that bad for getting a fusion done. And silver, I kind of netted 0, believe it or not. I started with 14 and I'm back up to 14. Definitely spent a lot of silver, maybe like 60-ish million silver across the entire fusion. But we basically netted 0 and we're back to where we started. But now let's jump into the first topic to review from the free-to-play perspective, and that is, of course, the new shiny object in the game, the Prism crystals. So this is the first time they've added a new type of summoning mechanic in the game in the lifetime of Raid, and so it's kind of cool to see that and kind of evaluate it for myself. In this case, they did focus on the Nyresen Union, so the Shadowkin, the Sylvan Watchers, and the Dwarves. So you can kind of see here that they picked some of the legendaries, looks like 3 from each faction. They picked some of the epics and then some of the rares. So you can see the rates here at the bottom here. It's 60% chance to get a rare, 37% chance to get an epic, and a 3% chance to get a legendary. They did let us know ahead of time that we were going to get a free gift of up to 30 Prism crystals, I guess depending on your player level. And so you can see I have the free 30 here, and it only costs 20 to summon, which is pretty generous. So we get 1.5. I guess can't really do halves for obvious reasons, but nonetheless you do get a free chance at potentially getting some decent legendaries. So as far as the pool goes overall, I think it's pretty decent. Like, they picked some of the best legendaries from each of these factions. Notably there's no void legendaries or no void epics, so that might be a bit of a bummer for some folks, but overall I think it's a pretty decent pool. I've seen some other opinions where, you know, a lot of these champions were previous guaranteed champions or they're fusion champions, and that is true. And in this case for myself, I have Mishinaki, Kimi, Herndig, Brogni, Trunda, and Kyoku. So I basically have everyone except the Sylvan Watchers just by happenstance. And so, yeah, it can be somewhat unfortunate if it's a pool like this or a 10x where you have all the champions, so you're not that motivated. But I don't think that makes it a bad system per se, just because I have all the champions. There are tons of people that are more recent that have started after the Brogni fusion, after the Herndig fusion, so they don't have those fusion champions, or they just haven't summoned any of these champions just due to bad luck. So I think it's pretty decent. I'd be happy to have dupes of any one of these, at least for Faction Guardians. They probably won't get used per se if I were to get any of those. But I also think it's important to highlight that you can get a good amount of decent epics from these factions as well. There are some that are not as good, in fairness, like Kellen the Shrike or something, or maybe Noichi here. But, you know, Mistred Dahi, Geomancer is very popular. Fenchi is pretty cool. Crowd in the Blue is one of like the Fire Knight gods nowadays. Cornelia is pretty decent for Arena. Hotatsu is good for Faction Wars. Tragi the Frog, one of the best ally protectors for Clan Boss. Myceliac Priest Ornn is one of the solo dragon champions in the game. Ruella is pretty decent. Fodbor, the Bard, is like a decent decreased defense champion for Faction Wars if you need it. Melga, one of the only revivers in the Dwarves Faction Wars. So decent amount of epics. The rares are kind of skippable, but that's just how they are in the game nowadays. There's only a handful of rares that are really endgame viable, so you can kind of ignore those. So yeah, that's basically the crux of the system. If we dive a little bit deeper into the rates here, it is worth noting that The epic rate here, 37%, is about 4.5 times the epic rate of an ancient shard during a non-2x or just a random pull. It is 6 times the legendary rate for an ancient shard for a non-2x, and it is half the legendary rate for a sacred shard during a non-2x. Now you could have those values and compare them to 2x's and then be slightly worse, but since these events are probably going to be a lot more scarce and limited, and you also can't really hoard the crystals over time, it doesn't really matter to compare them to those other type of events because they're not going to be, it's not one or the other, it's that you just get these whenever they pop up. And on that note, I think there's been some mixed reviews about the aspect of not being able to hoard the crystals for when you get a pool of champions that you really want someone from. And I think it's somewhat better because I myself have definitely complained about the wait Shadow Legends aspect of the game where we always have to hoard resources and wait for the right time to use them. So I think it's kind of refreshing that we have a system where you just kind of do it when it pops up and it goes away, and I don't have to worry about the best time to save or hoard or use my Prism crystals or pull my Prism shards. It's just kind of like, do I like the pool? Put a little effort to get some crystals, pull and see what happens, and then move on. So I'm a fan of that just because I hoard everything else in the game, and so it's nice to have something that I don't have to hoard. It seems to me that this is more of an ideal system for those who have kind of the FOMO aspect of the game, where you feel like if you waste your sacreds now, you're going to miss an opportunity in the future, whereas for these, it's just you pull what you have and see what happens, and then that's it. There's nothing to miss out on because you shot your shot and it's over. So overall, I like this new system. It's refreshing, it's something new, it's something different, and it's I guess it's a different take on summoning champions. It definitely feels more balanced towards actually the early and the mid game, so maybe it's a bit of a like that catch-up mechanic where you kind of just participate in these events when they come around, and you have relatively decent odds to just get a really good epic champion or a really good legendary champion from whatever the pool is. For those of us like myself that are more in the end game who might or may not have majority of the champions in the game, I definitely do not. But for those who have most of the champions in whatever pool, then you might have a chance to get some dupes, some faction guardians, or you just skip it because it doesn't matter and it doesn't help you progress. So it's up to you whether or not you participate, and I definitely like that aspect. So as a little bonus here, we might as well just pull and see what my first summon is going to be. I did purposely wait to make this video once CVC had begun, just so I can get the points potentially if we do get an insane legendary here. But like I said, in my case, I happen to have a lot of the legendaries, at least outside of the Sylvan Watchers, so they wouldn't be worth 30,000 points per se. They'd just be, I think, 10,000 or whatever just for getting a legendary, but I digress. So let's see what we get from the first ever Prism shard on the account. And it's a rare. That's about what I expected. Margrave Greenhawk, a previous fusion rare if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, 60% chance that happens, so I'm not surprised. I'm not mad. It is what it is, and we just move on. The next thing to talk about is the Deck of Fate, which is probably one of my least favorite events in the entire game. So in this case, it is a combination of Dungeon Divers and Artifact Enhancement, and we can see the breakdown at the very bottom of the info tab here. So if you get artifacts and accessories from dungeons, or if you upgrade them, you can get various points here, and it costs 1,000 of these, I guess, cards is the currency to flip the cards, and the goal is to just either get the base rewards here, which you can see based on the rarity of the cards. There are, I believe, 17 common, 13 rare, and 10 epic. But the juicy rewards really come from streaking, so to speak. So if you get 3 of a kind back to back to back, then you have a chance to get something in these pools. So generally speaking, these are terrible events. Like, they're just hard to do, they're hard to participate, and you don't know exactly what you're getting until you, I guess, flip the card. But so it's not really that worth it, and I never really recommend going that hard, especially when it's a combination so bad like Dungeon Divers and Artifact Enhancement. I don't know about you guys, but coming out of that fusion, the last thing I want to do is spend a bunch more silver. But at least there is a spider tournament, so there is some incentive to get some artifacts from dungeons. And since we are looking at the table of values, I figured it is worthwhile to switch over to the spreadsheet here, where we have my calculator here. And the thing I want to note here is that they did rebalance the currencies or the card amounts per dungeon run based on getting mythical items, and so all of the values below, like 6-star or 5-star rare, epic, legendary, etc., are lower than they used to be, but that's because they added a new high point, which is mythical gear. So the main takeaway here relative to the Dungeon Divers is that you can see the average currency per run here. So the best return on an investment is actually hard mode stage 10, as you'd expect, because now the highest point is rebalanced around mythical gear, which you can only get from hard mode. But when you come down to currency currency per energy, or the average there, you can still see that normal mode stage 20 is still the best bang for your buck as far as getting the currency overall relative to the energy you'd spend. However, you'll get a pretty even distribution between normal mode stage 24 and hard mode stage 10, and normal mode 25 is actually worse than hard mode stage 10. So if you can do hard mode, which is obviously for a lot of people that's out of scope, but if you can, it's definitely worth it to get there because you will just get more bang for your buck relative to normal mode stage 25. So while we're here, I do happen to have, I guess, 8 flips, so we might as well just try it out so you guys can see how the event works. And hopefully, my goal for these is typically to try and just streak the uncommons. I don't really care. I don't really bet on getting 3 rares in a row or 3 epics in a row or whatever to get the really juicy rewards. So I'm just trying to get the uncommons and maybe get some energy or some gems out of the mix. It really does seem like there's no way to game the system. There's no way we know what's going on under the cards, how the algorithm works. And so I think it just doesn't really matter where you pick, and you're just going to get what you get. So let's just see here. We started off with a rare 50 gems. That's pretty generous. I do like that. Probably going to be uncommon. Yep. 50 soul coins. That's pretty decent. Look over here maybe. Okay, we got 2 in a row uncommon. Can we get 3 in a row? Yes. 3 in a row on the uncommons, and we get the bonus of an ancient shard. Hey, that's pretty decent. I'm not going to complain about that one. We've got 4 more flips to go. Immortal soul coins. I do need those. That's a couple of essence. 25 gems. Pretty good. Pretty good. Can we get another triple? Yes. Rank 3 Tricken, which is basically useless. And a mortal soulstone. I mean, honestly, we're hitting like the good part of the triple uncommon table here. So I'm honestly not mad about that. So last flip, and it is a rare, and it's another mortal. So pretty decent. You know, like I said, I'm not going out of my way to max this out or anything by like grinding a bunch of dungeons or upgrading a bunch of artifacts, but I get points for doing what I'm already doing in the game. And so I'll just flip what I get and walk away with some decent rewards. And the last topic to discuss today is the advent of turn attack tournaments. Now, these have already been in the game for a little while. I think it started with the Sand Devil, and I didn't really talk about it back then because that one I just didn't feel was worth the time, because I, generally speaking, don't farm Sand Devil that much. I much rather spend my time in Minotaur or farming just gear overall and worrying less about ascending the gear that I have, just because I need more gear overall, regardless of the ascension. But nonetheless, we do have a spider turn attack tournament going on right now. So you can kind of see they are introducing the Prism crystals as a reward here on the right. So just by participating in this, you can get another chance at a potential legendary from the Nyreason summon pool. And the way this works, if we check out the info tab, and I think it's going to be balanced differently for each of the dungeons depending on how expedient they are, but nonetheless you get more points for spending less amount of turns, and the higher stage you can do that, the better. So as you can see, I've made a pretty big dent towards the 6500 for the Prism crystals, and that's as far as I plan to go for this, because I do want another shot to not get a rare. And this was primarily a product of the 1000 energy in the clan shop, so I threw all of that into Spider and kind of sped run that over the course of the day, and was able to get somewhere around 4000-ish points. If you guys were curious, I do run hard mode stage 10 when I do my Spider runs, and I do have a relatively pay-to-win team now, even though I just happen to get lucky. But as you can see here, it usually takes 6 turns, takes about 13 seconds, so it can definitely be a pretty fast run. I do plan to make a swap here with Tomb Lord. I think I plan to take him out and put in Newt once he's maxed out and built, which is going to be 2 weeks away, waiting for the next CVC. But I do plan to make that swap just to make it a little bit more consistent at that high speed rate. But yeah, let me know in the comment section down below if you guys want to see a showcase of this team. I definitely know it's a lot more whaley than my old one, so it might not be as applicable to most people in the game. But if you guys would still like to see that type of content, then let me know in the comment section down below. So yeah, once again, I am a fan of this introduction of content in the game. I think it's a cool concept to have a turn-based tournament. Now, obviously, for majority of the player base, you're not going to be able to be competitive as far as the tournament aspect of it, and so I definitely don't expect to compete with the people that are going for like 20,000 points here, but it is more opportunity to get just free rewards, you know, from the rewards here on the right, and it's just doing more of what you already do and just caring a little bit more about minimizing turns. And it also does line up pretty nicely with CVC, so it is a great time to be running Spider. And I also happen to be in the market for Shadowkin accessories. I'm looking for an accuracy banner with some speed for my Riho Bone Spear for the eventual Sand Devil team that I'm working on. And so yeah, I'm in the mood to run some Spider for sure. I'm definitely more focused on the champion training event because there is a legendary tome up for grabs, and you guys know me as the tome chaser that I am. But as soon as I finish that, I'm just gonna keep focusing on Spider, and we're definitely going to lose this CVC, so hopefully you guys have a better balanced matchup than we do, because we're getting smoked here. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comment section down below if you guys got anything better than a rare from your Prism Shard, and do let me know if you agree or disagree with some of my takes about the newer content in the game. As always, if you found this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below, and if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to hit that subscribe button down below as well for more content just like this one. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.